for this Coldplay concert. For 7,000 rupees, you could take a chopper from Mahalakshmi Racecourse to the concert. 20 minutes.
Making money off the problem, instead of solving for it, right? Like,
That's true, but when the problem is something as basic as transport,
I'll tell you when the problem is. The problem is when you get a heart attack and your damn ambulance is stuck in this thing and no amount of your money can get that ambulance to move faster. That's suddenly when people realize it's a lot better to live somewhere else, right? So,
welcome everyone to another episode of The Overcorrection. We're back in studio with Mithul Etta.
thank you.
Welcome,
Thanks for having me.
back.
Just because our infrastructure is so bad, Bombay can't have nice things anymore, right? You have one concert and 2 million people are stuck in traffic, right? Just think about it. That is crazy. It takes one anomaly, one event, one jackass crashing into the wrong car on the road, and you just block off the city, right? The cost to run this city is not just money, it's money plus human life, right?
We also have this way of designing our buildings to look like New York, where they actually design glass buildings there because it's a cold place. We just want to look like New York, so we do that in a city that's already hot. There's no thought into what we're doing and why we're even doing it.
I think we're designing ourselves into a very dangerous place, right? Or we are not designing ourselves and ending up in a very dangerous place. How do we start to exercise moderation, right? Like, what is Mumbai's pitch deck, right? Like, if Mumbai had to pitch itself to you, what would it be?
Welcome everyone to another episode of The Overcorrection. We're back in studio with Mithul Etta.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thanks for having me.
back. So today, Mithul and I are going to be talking about the lost opportunity that our Indian cities represent.
Yeah,
So I was reminded about this because recently I was at a wedding and there were a lot of foreigners attending. People from the United States, people from Europe, and they, came up to us on the first day and, one of them asked me, hey, we, looked up Mumbai is like a coastal city, is there like a beach we can go to? And I said, no, I'm sorry, there's no beach you can go to.
rude shock.
Because I think Mumbai is a coastal city only in name. We don't even think about it, but we are actually endowed with such a geographically fortunate climate and coastline that it could be a city like Miami, it could be a city like Lisbon, but unfortunately we've turned our ocean into one big toilet. And it was kind of a sad moment for me to realize that we don't have what we could.
Yeah, I completely agree, right? Like 22.3 million, that's roughly our population. I don't think a single one of them has dreamt of going into the ocean. Just think about that, right? We live by the coast and we've killed that dream for about 20 odd million people. And it's unfortunate, right? Because even if you look at it purely commercially, right, across the world, cities have monetized ocean fronts, right? That's the primest of real estate, and you have a lot of activities there, and it's typically what frames the landscape of a city, right? When you see San Francisco Bay and all of these, like Singapore, it kind of frames the city, right?
I mean, exactly. If you look at how Bombay real estate works, they don't sell you beach access properties. They tell you sea view.
Yeah, you can
Because
just see
that's
it.
all you're going to do.
Just
with
be able to
this.
see it. Exactly.
There's no other interaction you're going to have with this ocean. I mean, Mithul and I actually met surfing.
Yeah, so
in Goa, a city we're going to be talking about later in this episode. But we, out of sheer desperation, pure desperation, have gone and surfed in Virar.
yeah, like 2 hours north of Bombay. Like, that's the only place we felt confident enough was, not polluted. You'd probably not get a cocktail of diseases.
Yeah, I mean, you're still
And-
catching lays wrappers and like
Yeah.
random fishing poles popping in and out, and it's dirty, but probably not chemically hazardous in the way that I'm actually concerned
At least we
about.
hope so.
Yeah, still alive.
Still alive. So I think, that's a remarkable point, right? Like, we've made our oceans inaccessible, right? Completely. It's not used for transport. It's not used for recreation. It's just to be, like you said, right? Sea view. That's all we can literally do is just see the view. And it's sad at a lot of levels, right? Because imagine how much more fulfilling life would be if we had a beach, right? You're newly a father, so you would never ever dream of the whole beach experience in Bombay, right? Just think about how many fathers miss out on that little one thing, right?
We should be able to do that Every day we live by the beach,
Yeah.
apparently.
Apparently. And I think that kind of now moves into the quality of life, right? What is Mumbai's pitch deck, right? Like if Mumbai was a startup and it came to us, it's like, okay, this is my pitch deck. Like, what's it going to be? Like, I think of this, right? And it usually just one slide, right? And it just says like money, like employment, right? Like if it didn't have that to offer, what else does it have, right? We don't have good quality of amenities, right? No parks, no gardens, no public spaces, right? Barely anything, right? The ones that do exist are crowded as hell, right? And very badly managed. Like the Gateway of India, right, is like a fortress now. I don't know if you've been off late, right? You go through security checks into like a cordoned place where you have people with guns. Yes, we had a terrorist attack, but then you've made it such a hostile environment that it is not an enjoyable experience anymore. We have one museum, right? Right, and which is a shame, right? Like, what are you offering me as Bombay? Right, there's no public transport. Let's forget about the luxuries, right? The basics, right? There's no public transport in terms of reliable, safe, easy to access, right? It's crowded. Like, we have somehow normalized that the doors on the train do not close, will not close. Yeah, I'm saying the cost of transport is X number of 1,000 crores and about 900 people a year. You know, like
Worth it.
It goes on the same balance sheet, so it's all good.
3 people a day is the cost of doing business. Just to not close the doors. Just close the doors. Let a few people get late for work. Let the economy restabilize. If you find out there's like a
so
20% drop in 20% drop in productivity because we made people late to work because not so many people could cram in the trains. Let's at least know that and not accept 3 people dying every day just as this is how our country has to work.
Yeah, so I think you're going to get a lot of flack for saying that, but so I agree with what you're saying on a time scale, right? So we've seen this happen for 30 years, or at least I've seen it happen for 30 years, 3 decades, right? We haven't gone from saying 300 trains with open doors to saying at least, okay, we have 100 trains where the doors close, right? In 30 years. I'm just saying there has to be some... there has to be some motion towards a better point. Yes, we have metros now. Yes, we have AC trains, but there are 2 AC trains, right? They run twice a day, right? That's it, right? So when I do the train to Virar, right, there are those 2 AC trains, I think in the morning and 2 in the evening. That's about it.
That's why we close the doors, guys, not to save lives for
so
AC.
So to keep the AC in, see. So I think maybe that's the answer. We need AC. But I think the fundamental issue is not transport itself. I don't think anybody is thinking about how we are going to sort of solve these problems of Indian cities, right? I think there are 3, at least what I understand is 3 large sort of buckets of problem, right? So one is the density problem, right? Bombay is... everybody is seeing the development and so on and so forth, right? You had a house with, say, you had a independent structure with about, say, 30 families, and now that's become 300, right? If the cost of the flat is 3, 5, 7, 8 crores, right? You can reasonably bet each flat has about 2 to 3 cars, right? So that's 600 cars, right? Where there were probably like 10. So there is a humongous increase in cars, right? And our answer is, at least from a policy perspective, is to make more flyovers. And we are seeing it, right? Coastal road and so on. We are encouraging more vehicular traffic, right? Because every decision maker travels in a car.
Yeah, and as we're seeing, I know progress is being made, but I think we've all been in a jam on the sea link. Not for like some unusual event, just there happened to be a lot of traffic that day.
But let's talk about but let's talk about the event, right? So just because our infrastructure is so bad, Bombay can't have nice things anymore, right? You have one concert and 2 million people are stuck in traffic, right? Just think about it. That is crazy. Prime Minister decides he wants to go chill somewhere in Bombay. He comes into town, jams up the whole city. That's it. It takes one anomaly, one event, one jackass crashing into the wrong car on the road, and you just block off the city, right? And collectively, the amount of time that we are spending, right? Like an hour a day. I think an hour a day is the average that somebody spends in traffic today. And that could go up to 2-3 hours. I know people who travel 3 hours a day. Like imagine if cumulatively in your life that will be like a couple of years spent in traffic,
Yeah.
just gone, right? And then if you put a dollar value to that, just imagine, or a rupee value to that, uh, how much of loss that is, right? Like just in terms of money lost down the drain, somebody stuck in traffic.
And your time is ultimately what you're on this earth to enjoy. You can be making money at your job, but you're losing time in the car, you're losing time, and it's not even a pleasant 3 hours
No,
in
absolutely
traffic,
not.
right? So there's this idea, like even if you're, say, in Goa, we've spoken about this before, if you have to drive 45 minutes, it's a pleasant 45-minute drive. You can enjoy it. You have the headspace and the lack of an insane level of very negative stimulation around you. I mean, that's all Bombay traffic is.
I think it's a mental health issue. Just driving in Bombay is a mental health like challenge, right? Like Bombay is hard mode, Like, I don't think it's just Bombay. It's every city in India, right? Like
Yeah.
it's difficult to drive out there right now.
And when you were saying like what's Bombay's pitch deck, the air isn't even clean.
Yeah, I don't know. The AQI is a tough one, right? Like I don't think anybody seems to want to touch that issue because how are we going to solve for it? Right? It's large scale behavior change, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know my car has a AQI meter now, right? And that's always like going through, at least
Always on the red bar.
always on the red or always on the orange bar. So I think that's also the story of Bombay, right? The people who can do something about it are insulated in these little cocoons.
But
right?
with the air quality, I know people who could spend any amount of money to make their air quality in their house better. You just can't, even in your own home. A doctor recommended a friend's child to be taken out of the city because she was developing a respiratory issue. So she took her to Dubai for 2 months. I'm saying like you're solving problems with money, sure, but this is not a solution. You're having to leave your whole life here because the air is too bad for your baby to breathe right now.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the right answer there is, right? Like, I don't think there is an answer.
I think this should factor in, like, what is your pitch deck for Bombay?
Yeah.
Like, if you can't give me this guarantee.
Like clean air, right? Like just basic, right? Like,
I think when we were talking earlier, you spoke about Japan. And that was really cool, right? Like basically high speed transport.
yeah. So I think, distance, right? So even if we just look at distance as a challenge, right? Today, you can only stay X amount of kilometers from Bombay because that's the fastest mode of transport allows you to cover that distance in some amount of time, which makes sense for you to stay there, right? Which would be the furthest reach will be probably Vasai, right? An hour to get to the city, right? What if you could quadruple that distance, right? So if you draw, like say a radius, right? Suddenly you could stay in Ahmedabad, you could stay in Pune, you could stay wherever, right? Or even, somewhere out in Lonavala, and 1 hour gets you into the middle of the city, right? Like suddenly you could suffer in Bombay, but at least you get to go back, live a nice, comfortable life elsewhere, right? So at least you're also giving people in this city a hope at a better life, right? In terms of, when I say better life, better quality of life, and balanced out with commerce.
Yeah,
right?
because some people are going to have to live in this city.
Yeah, there's
for
no
the
way.
city to run.
Yes.
It would be nice if some people did their work here and sort of let the city breathe a bit.
Yeah.
Because there's no planning in the city. It's like people
Zero planning.
It's very reactionary to like.
Everything is knee jerk, right? Like we're doing everything in relation to, as a reaction to something else. I'll give you an example. Like, for example, when we're coming down between Dadar and Parel, right? Like the second long flyover on the southbound side that is going towards South Bombay. I don't know what they've done, but they've added these patches, right? Of I think there was probably a pothole or something, and they've added a patch, and the patch is not flush to the road. Right, so there's these little like patch marks which bump up from the road, and for cars that are going, bikes that are going, like it's damn scary, right? Like I've seen bikes like try to avoid it and come onto this lane. Right, so I don't get it. Like, isn't it anyone's job, right? Like to be like, hey, this doesn't make sense.
And this is like around your prime real estate.
Yeah, I don't know what they are charging you for. Like,
Yeah, what are you paying all these taxes for in the prime, the highest paying tax bracket in this country?
highest, like the most number of billionaires in India, most amount of tax-paying citizens in India. But what are we paying for?
You know what they're
it's
doing?
crazy.
Like for this Coldplay concert,
Mhm.
for 7,000 rupees, one way, one person, you could take a chopper from Mahalakshmi Racecourse to
Imagine
the concert.
that.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing.
Making money off the problem. Instead of solving for it, right? Like, yeah, but that's always going to be the case, right? Like the rich are also, or rich or whatever, the privileged are always going to be able to spend enough money to not face the problem, right? And then the problem doesn't exist.
Yeah, but that's true, but when the problem is something as basic as transport, we have to look at
No,
countries.
I'll tell you when the problem is. The
like-
problem is when you get a heart attack and your damn ambulance is stuck in this thing and no amount of your money can get that ambulance to move faster. That's suddenly when people realize it's a lot better to live somewhere else, right? So,
Yeah. You're talking
when
about, we were in the car and
there's an ambulance just stuck and there's
bumper
nowhere
to bumper
anyone.
traffic. What are you going to do? We'd have to crowd surf that guy to the hospital.
So I think it all just boils down to that again, right? Like the cost to run this city is not just money, it's money plus human life, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's our transport system, whether it's our this thing. So, and that's a cost we have agreed to, right? Tacitly agreed to.
Just like with the 3 people a day almost in some years dying
Yeah.
on the trains, there's probably some number about the number
We don't
of
even know.
people in ambulances who die because they're stuck in traffic. And when if they reached in a somewhat normal period of time, they could
They
have
would
been
have been saved, yeah.
And that is the cost of doing business.
Motor accidents. I mean, you can keep adding on to it, right? So I don't think this cost is ever accounted for, right? Ever.
So-
I mean, that's where we're living, right? Like, I mean, we're living in these mega structures that could get you killed at any point of time, right? Like that billboard. I don't know if you know that they erected that huge,
Oh my God.
humongous billboard.
And then they throw a fit that,
That-
it was actually not supposed to be there and there
Right,
was something.
so-
I was like, so good of you to be on top of it.
And the other one, I think maybe this was last year. We had this freak dust storm or gust.
Isn't that what toppled the billboard?
Yes, that, and it also toppled parking structures, right? Like the elevator parking thingies, right? Some of those blew down. So that also goes to show that like all of this there is no compliance in terms of safety.
Oh.
Saif Ali Khan gets stabbed in his own house. Like guys, I mean, but at least in Bombay, at least we believe that the safety is not the challenge.
Believed.
Yeah, believed.
Yeah.
But then again, everyone's like,
talking about structures, just so we can keep listing ones which we can just remember off the top of our head. The T1 Delhi,
oh yeah,
the airport,
the airport fell apart.
under mild rain conditions. And this airports, and they're like, oh, it's a little old. I was like, these buildings are not supposed to crumble when they're a little old. They're buildings
Yeah,
that are
because,
up for like hundreds and thousands of years. That are structures that are holding place.
The Red Fort in Delhi is still up. It was built long before your airport, FYI.
Yeah, with a lot less apparent scientific help and shit.
Exactly. And no, that's one. And the other thing, I think you said it also, right? Sort of how the climate plays into all of this. Okay, now we've eliminated the green cover from our cities, right? Like largely, we've concretized every surface we could concretize. So everything's become hot. The cities become like an oven, right? And everyone like, it's gotten hot. I'm like, no shit, turn on the AC, and then again that gets us more hot.
And then we also have this way of designing our buildings to look like New York, where they actually design glass buildings there because it's a cold place and they need to trap the heat in and create the greenhouse effect. We just want to look like New York, so we do that in a city that's already hot, jack up the air conditioning prices, increase the heat. There's no thought into what we're doing and why we're even doing it.
It's crazy. I think we're designing ourselves into a very dangerous place, right? Like, or we are not designing ourselves and ending up in a very dangerous place. I mean, the size of the infrastructure, I mean, the city has outgrown its infrastructure, right? And their answer to that is the coastal road, right? Let's just put more roads around the city so that we can get people in and out of certain places much faster. But I think we need to start taking a look at, how do we start to exercise moderation, right? Like Singapore rations its license plates, right? So it has to keep a check on the number of cars. London has a congestion tax, right? New York has certain rules and regulations about decongesting the cities and so on
And they
and so
can
forth.
do all of this because their public transport system is so
Is
good.
somewhat, I would say good. I'm saying it's somewhat kept up with their cities, right? Like
I mean, everyone takes it. Like the odd person, like the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, doesn't take the subway. But you'll have sitting members of parliament
Yeah.
on a subway. Or a subway, right? In the
Yeah.
UK?
The underground.
The underground.
Yeah.
You have sitting members of parliament. So PM, sure, he'll take a car. But a member of parliament, can you imagine a member of parliament in India?
Yeah, you can if it's close to the election.
Yeah.
You know,
On a
It's not-
train without a camera around him.
That's probably never happened, you know. So, anyway, but let's look at all the other cities, right? Like, what city does provide you with, you know, not Bombay?
I mean, still talking on the metro front, Pune is a great place, but Pune has also gotten very expensive. Air quality in Pune is also deteriorating. I did not
Traffic
expect
is
it.
insane in Pune.
Real estate is expensive over there. Bangalore is a clusterfuck, apparently.
Yeah.
Getting a cab in Bangalore is like getting Coldplay tickets or something like that.
Yeah.
It's been described as just absolute torture.
Yeah, no. So I think now the Bangalore has reverted to the bike taxis, right? So there are bike taxis everywhere, and it's apparently the only way to get anywhere in Bangalore now through the traffic. Like, I've had horrid experiences in Bangalore in the traffic. It's just insane. Like 2 hours to get somewhere.
Yeah, and speaking of cab issues, let's get to a city which Mithul and I
Oh,
both
God.
love. We met there. We've spent a lot of time in Goa.
We have.
Okay, we've spent extended periods of time in the lockdown. So we've not just gone on short
We've lived in
vacations.
Goa.
We've lived there. Like, we've spent months on end working from there. But Goa is going through some shit, man.
Yeah.
And we have the lowest tourism rates I've seen in years. New Year's Eve in Goa was apparently dead. And people are just saying it's not worth it anymore. You're jacking up prices. What used to be cheap, affordable prices for mediocre service, which we were all happy with, has become really expensive prices for mediocre service. And that we're suddenly not. Like, you can go to Thailand, you can go to Sri
Anywhere
Lanka,
else.
you can go to even places in India. You can go to the Andamans, you can go to Lakshadweep, and you can go to Kerala. And these are all places that are now seeming to be winning the war against Goa's
I think
spot
the
of
attrition of tourism is tourists from Goa is going to Sri Lanka, Thailand, because same price, way better everything.
And Goa has potential. Goa is actually, for me, one of my favorite cities because it gives me the best balance of nature and infrastructure.
So I'll tell you what, right? Like, it's a touchy topic, right? Because when I bring this up, right, it's everyone's Goa, right? We tend to talk about Goa as it is our Goa, and sure, I would love to have my little slice of Goa, right, where my people, my vibe, my tribe, and all that shit exists, right? But what's actually happening in Goa is three things, right? So one is the profile of tourists is changing, right? I think somebody said it beautifully. We don't want minibus tourists, right? You don't want a bus of 50 uncle and aunties loading off on a beach, cramping everyone's style, right? The second thing is you have an invasion of the north, right, in Goa, and everyone's seen this, right? And not to paint with a broad stroke, but the folks from Delhi, Gurgaon, and all of that, they bring a certain flavor to Goa, right? And which is not palatable by everyone, right? It's not everybody's flavor of ice cream. And somebody said it very beautifully, right? You are the worst version of yourself in Goa, right? And if you're from Delhi, Gurgaon, we don't want to see the worst version of yourself, man. Like even the best version of yourself is, somewhat questionable. So all I'm saying is those are two things, right? So first, we don't want minibus tourists. Second is we don't want the folks on the north, right?
What do you think of all the Russians in Goa?
So I think they've gotten pushed out. So what has happened, luckily or unluckily, I don't know how you want to look at it, but Goa has gotten so expensive that the cheap white, what do you call that, trashy white tourist can't afford to live there anymore.
I mean, basically, for people who've not seen this side of Goa, there are parts of North Goa where if you walk into a restaurant, it's a Russian restaurant. The menu is in Russian. People don't speak English.
Yeah.
It's all Russian people, and it's Arambol is basically, you feel like a foreigner in your own goddamn country.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm traveling through Arambol, I feel a little odd. I'm like,
where is this place?
Why do I feel like I should have my passport on me? It's so strange. And it's a little odd. There's a bit of tension sometimes between the Russians and the locals.
There definitely is.
But and basically these Russians come down in the winter months of Russia, and they spend the money they earned in Russia, and it just lasts them ages in Goa.
Yeah.
But I think that's a
No,
really
but I
cool
also
point that you
think,
made. That it's not so cheap anymore.
No, so there's another role that I wouldn't just say Russians, but the foreigners play, right? Like a large part of the Goa's culture was also fostered by the hippie culture.
Fair enough.
The Goan culture, right? You think all the good folks in Goa got their drugs from where, right? It came it was all part of the scene. So, right, I'm saying every bit of Goa's dark side contributed to Goa being
Formed
Goa,
for a reason.
right? So it's that, and I think everybody was very complacent for a very long time because everybody had their hand in the pie, right? But now that the Russians are getting pushed out and sort of the entire power structure of Goa is changing, right? So even if you see the profile of restaurants, right, like you'd never see the type of like there is a dress code in Goa.
Oh, yeah.
There is a guest list in Goa, and you can enter this restaurant with pants and shoes. I'm like, where are we, right? Like Chota Vagator in my lifetime. Like I have pictures where I'm there and there's just nothing around. To cut to today, where there are like 400 clubs and
There are
people.
actually franchises of Bombay restaurants in Goa. I'm like, you're going to go
it's-
all the way to...
Goa to eat in the same shitty, overpriced Bombay restaurant, really. So, but like I said, right, it's everyone's Goa, and that's the version of Goa a lot of people are subscribing to. So what's happening is that it's just not the Goa that we were used to or we vibed with, right? It's a completely different Goa.
I was actually reminded about Goa right now because we were talking about the cab situation in Bangalore and the cab situation
Oh
in
my
Goa.
God.
That's why a lot of people drive drunk there.
Yeah.
Because if it was cheaper and more reasonable to take a cab, you could just tell. It's so easy to tell people in Mumbai not to drive drunk. It's like, just sit in a cab.
Yeah,
There's a cheap
so
one,
cheap.
always affordable to you. And please apply that logic everywhere you go. But in Goa, when it can cost you 2,000 rupees to go 5 kilometers.
Yeah. To drink a 200 rupee beer in a shack.
Yeah.
So it's insane. No, that's one. And secondly, like the lanes in Goa are still the same. There is no road to go to a restaurant. Like I've been to restaurants, fancy
The
restaurants.
best one, Saz on the beach.
Yeah.
You know how you have to get there?
Right, it's
I'd
insane.
rather go from the beach.
Yeah. I don't get like how this is okay, like because you've been to Thailand, right? You've been to Phuket. There's a parking lot. It's just perfect, right? The beach has parking. You can roll up to the beach, park there in a nice parking lot, right? Enjoy the beach and just drive off.
And the beach is cleaner despite having more construction that happened around it.
amazingly maintained because I think there is a certain value for I don't think that value exists in Goa at all.
And you know what I see people saying in Goa? They're like, okay, dude, the north is done. Enjoy these last 5 years.
Yeah.
We're all going to go to Agonda. I was like, are
Yeah.
you just going to trash one part just
And move to the next
on?
one, yeah.
There's no sustainable way you can enjoy places. And we've seen this, like you said, in our lifetime. I remember my friend when we were making our first Goa trips, between the age of 16 to 18, right?
What a beautiful place.
And
people back then were cribbing that Goa is screwed. I'm like,
you know what they used to say? So we used to go to Baga. Like at that time, Baga was still chill, right? And my friend who
Exactly.
had older siblings who like older, so they knew a little bit more about the cool spot. They were like, bro, what are you gonna Baga, man?
Pero Anjana.
Come to Vagator.
Oh.
And he used to call it Vagator, like it was this.
No,
the
Anjana,
Russians are all there.
Anjana and Curly's. Curly's now is a Gujarati thali restaurant. I shit you not. Like I've seen people in saris, kids. It's insane. Like it's destroyed.
Minibus straight to
tourists,
Curly's.
right? Where you have 6 uncles all in the same white with the palm tree thing, where all of them look like a waiter in a Goan restaurant. So I think, but I mean, see, hey, they're bringing in the cash, right? Like someone's making money off of it.
But they have also started losing money to them, to the minibus tourists. Like
Yeah.
this year in Goa, because of things like the cab mafia, because of overpriced hotels which don't offer great service,
Yeah.
even the minibus tourists have gone down. So while it was maybe great that they were there fueling the economy of Goa, like at the end, the biggest issue is Goa's losing huge amounts in tourism revenue. And that is their
because
main
the minibus
revenue.
tourist isn't coming to Goa to see the minibus tourist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to look at the hot chicks.
Yeah.
That's why he's coming
Yeah.
with his minibus, right?
And the hot chicks
The
have
hot chicks
left.
ain't there no more. So it's just minibus tourists. And the Gurga folks also want the same thing, right? So it's just a bunch of sausages running around on the beach. So I think that's also feeding into the narrative.
Yeah.
So no, I agree, right? Like I don't think we have a concerted view on how it's shaping up our economy. The folks who are making money in Goa are making money, and it's just trashing everything else.
Yeah.
It's just, it is what it is, right? I think it's the theme of Indian
Yeah, I
cities.
mean, like, look at it. Like, Goa is such a major city. The cab mafia there is so strong, and they have allowed it. I mean, it is an allowed system. Otherwise,
of
you could
course.
call the cops on them for what they do.
Yeah.
But you can't because it's allowed. Ola, Uber can't open there, can't run there. Like, can you imagine huge global corporations like Ola and Uber have to say no, we won't run in like a tourist hotspot of the world.
Yeah.
Goa Miles didn't run for shit. Cab drivers, personally, are actually scared to come pick you up from where you ask them to pick you up because that is the
Somebody else's-
jurisdiction,
yeah.
like official jurisdiction of some other cabbies. And they'll like say, can you walk 1 kilometer down and meet me behind the church? I was like, dude, I'm not buying drugs. I want to
I want a cab.
take a cab.
Yeah. It's insane. No, it is. It totally is. And but what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, like, we surf there, so as long as they're not trashing
As
the
long as
ocean,
they're
it's
trashing the
actually
ocean,
kind of
yeah.
good for us.
Yeah.
But
Is
what I
it
love
though?
about Goa, it's not good because why I tell people actually to go surfing in Goa is because
It's the
when
community.
you're learning, there's a community and there's also so many other things you can do.
Yeah.
Right. So there's fantastic restaurants. One of my favorite restaurants in Goa
In Goa.
in Goa and in Mumbai is the Second House. Right. That's a top quality restaurant. So much more affordable than
A lot of the other trash out there.
than
yeah.
a lot of the other trash out there. And I was going to say compared to Mumbai, it's like not super affordable in Goa standards.
Oh no, I don't think Bombay is affordable on any metric for anything,
Yeah.
right? Like,
But it would be a shame to see businesses like those, great restaurants we know, great bars we know, shut down because now they don't have enough foot traffic.
no. So I think that's great, right? Like a city like Bombay also stifles entrepreneurship, at least on the retail kind, right? Like you can't have you can't try out a restaurant because opening a restaurant will cost you an arm and a leg, right? So because retail storefronts are so expensive, we can't have
People take a chance,
innovation or people
innovation.
taking chances, right? Or anything for that matter, right? That's why we have shitty restaurants all serving the same. Like I went to a restaurant, we won't take names, I trash them, but supremely expensive, and they've done all the right things, right? Put what looked like the extras of some rich person shadi as their decor, right? And severely minimized their portion sizes, written everything in European languages so that nobody understands it, including the chef or the waiter, because the waiter was talking Haryanvi, so I don't know what. And then, right? And it was just garbage food, right? It was just so bad. Like there was one dish that was good, and that dish was something that they literally bought from Spain and then they just gave, right? So it's a packaged product. But what I'm saying is there were so many people who are excited to go there, take pictures and so on and so forth. So it's become about that. It's not about the food anymore. It's about everything but the food, right? It's about where you are, who you're seen with, and so on and so forth. And that's the trend.
Yeah, and there was this report talking about how Gen Z and even younger millennials are choosing to spend their discretionary wealth, and they are spending it on experiences.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a sort of positive spin on this, right? They're choosing to go to a Coldplay concert or for a dinner over buying a luxury product of shoes or a watch or a bag.
I think they're doing both.
I think one, they are doing both, but two, also even the experiences, we have to really analyze what is this? Is this experience because going to the Coldplay concert
And
is
then
the
getting
in
stuck for
thing,
3
and then
hours.
getting stuck for 3 hours, and then I went to the Coldplay concert. I don't take my phone out at concerts. I find it kind of silly. I was like, this whole thing is video recorded. I'll take a photo of me and my wife, at the concert. But everyone out there is just watching. You're watching the concert through the phone in front of you.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? It's more important that you tell the world that you're there than actually be there.
Because a lot of these experiences aren't that great. Like this restaurant you're talking about,
Yeah.
it may be the it place to be to.
Yeah, like I'd rather go for a Coldplay concert in Thailand, right? Like in Bangkok.
Any day.
Way better. I don't have to cram like rats into something, get stuck for 3 hours, right? Fight everybody. Like, my God, the way we behave around these things, right? Like, one artist decided to come down and it just shatters like all kind of, public decorum suddenly.
Yeah, so, I think while this whole idea that, they're spending on experiences, you really have to ask, like, what part of this experience are they spending on?
Yeah.
Is it the experience, or is it the social value you get of having had the experience officially?
It's more that, right? It's social validation, I think, more than most things. But it's the world we live in, right? Today, it is aspirational to be a influencer, right? Think about what a meaningless fucking job that is. So I met this girl. She's a dentist. She's studying to be a dentist, right? And obviously, she figured out somewhere along the way that she looked way too good to be a dentist, right? So, yeah, I mean, we have one less dentist. Yeah, you have one more attractive looking thing to look at, but right, you're losing you're losing people from real profession. Like, these are people with like no skill sets.
Yeah. That's the point. That's why it's such an aspirational job. It's almost impressive to have no skill sets and make that kind of money.
That kind of money,
like,
right?
It's the real challenge. Like, dude, if you're like a neurosurgeon, yeah, I'm not surprised you're rich. Yeah. But if you are like someone who doesn't do anything
with a generous neckline and you made that much money, hallelujah. Gentlemen, that should be in MBA school.
I tip my hat to you.
No, I mean, she should be giving the next MBA lecture, bro.
I don't need to hear from this person who studied 25 years and went through hell in residency just to make some money.
Stuck in traffic for 2 hours a day.
2 hours every day.
Well, this chick takes the chopper to go to Coldplay. Snaps a couple of photos and boom.
I just remembered we got onto this discussion because of, Coldplay.
Coldplay,
right, like the value of these experiences the city is offering you is not worth the experience. It's worth the social media market value of it.
Yeah.
Which
I think that only exists in a bubble around the city, right? Like I said, if we just boil it back down, right? What is Mumbai's pitch deck, right? Like, if Mumbai had to pitch itself to you, what would it be? Or, okay, let's scrub Mumbai, right? Like, if a city needs to build a pitch deck, what needs to be in the pitch deck? I think you have a fresh perspective on life, so I'd love to hear you, and then I'll follow you after.
So I'm reminded of what you said, that if you look at your parents' generation, an average person, even like say 60th, 70th percentile person, could afford to grow up in the city and buy a house.
Yeah.
Today, we live in a place where the 99th percentile person is earning 36 lakhs a year.
Yeah.
99th. So imagine what the 60th or the 50th, the average person is doing.
Yeah.
I think a city should be able to offer something like that. The ability to build a long-term life.
100%, right? I think that's very well articulated, right? And to add to that, right, I would just say like some kind of respect and dignity for like the people who live there, right?
Yes.
But I feel like we celebrate the spirit of Bombay. It's not a spirit of Bombay. It is the unsaid pain and like trauma that people go to just to live in this city and to make a respectable living, right?
You know how slaves used to have, like African slaves used to have these like shanty songs they used to sing to make themselves feel better while working. It's just a way to like get your mood up because you're gonna have to do this stuff. That's almost like what the spirit of Mumbai. You'll be jammed in a train and you'll just be making
someone's armpit in your face.
You'll make eye contact. Like, spirit of Mumbai, nah? Like, this is the shit. Like, what a hustle. We're gonna reap such rewards.
They put a spin on that shit, right?
Yeah, like we're gonna reap such rewards in some future for putting up with this stuff because I'm gonna become the next
whoever, right? So I think that's I don't know, like I just feel that our cities are failing us, right, tremendously, and
this should be a lookout of the government.
I don't think so. Like, I really think the government is so inept at solving this problem. Like, why would we assume the government can do anything?
Who would, like, private
citizens, right? Like, I think the citizens themselves have to somewhere take onus of it, right? Because the people who can do something about it have chosen that it's not their problem, and everybody else can't do anything about it, right? So we're just in this, like, someone's got to grab the bull by their horns.
And maybe it, in some sense, is too late in this way to change Mumbai into something
No, I
else.
think-
I like this idea of living a little away and figuring
Yeah.
out the commerce situation.
Yeah, so so I think bullet train is a great way to sidestep the bullet itself, right?
Or new startups, please consider opening shop in Pune, opening shop in New Bombay. Even if if you want to get an office, convince people like Puru's boss did to move people
This
to
is
Goa.
policy, right? Like, we need an enlightened set of policymakers, right? See,
Yes.
think about it. Like
That's
a
right. So
stroke
is it
of a
coming
pen.
from corporates? Like
No,
private
I'm saying
corporate?
no, but someone has to lobby,
It
right?
stems work down. Like if you gave people job opportunities elsewhere, I think like you said, Mumbai's one pitch deck is like, hey, this is the first page. We've not made any other page.
Yeah.
This is where you'll get a job.
No, I think that's one. And I think second is, it boils down to the quality of polity, right? The problem is the level of politics. It doesn't concern the top 10% of this thing, right? You have a few politicians that represent the city of Bombay, right? And they say and do things that we all want to hear, but they themselves know these guys are not the vote bank, right? Like, what percentage of the 20 to 23 million people who live here you think are like us? It'll probably be 1 million, 2 million.
At
That's
most.
it. At most, right? The rest of them are the Spirit of Mumbai people, right? And they don't want Coldplay concerts, bro. They want to get home on time to their kids, right? They want to be able to send their kids to a school that gives them opportunities for a future, right?
There was
Buy
a
a
Coldplay
house.
concert on a Tuesday, right?
Like,
Think about what it did to all the people
Everyone else.
who did not give a fuck about Coldplay.
Exactly.
And was just having a rough Tuesday.
Ridiculous, right?
Third one in the city. I was like, have two. Fuck it.
So, I mean, also, like, BKC. Right? I think it's a great example. I think somebody wrote a post. I think it was on LinkedIn. Hopefully, this is pre-GPT, because now everything on LinkedIn is written by GPT. But it's like, whoever designed BKC, right, completely ignored everybody who worked in BKC. Right? The bosses got into their fancy cars and left. There's no train transport. There's no last mile transport. There are barely any buses that go into BKC.
That's why it's so nice.
All offices, yeah, it's so nice.
It's so nice when you go there because it's
Yeah, but
transportation
all offices
catastrophe.
leave at the exact same time. Just imagine the clusterfuck of that situation, right? And it is perpetually jammed.
Yeah, everyone's
Perpetually.
sitting. Very few people also now, you don't drive yourself, right? That's what you do. You get a driver because labor is cheap enough that you'll say like, man, I'm just going to pretend this traffic doesn't exist. Headphones in my ear, on the phone, texting, doing whatever I was going to do. And we'll labor and cost our way out of it. But at the end, man, you're losing your time.
Yeah, lots
You
of
could
it.
be like spending time with your family. You could be
Doing anything else.
You could be spending time outside.
Like, it is the most meaningless use of your time is being stuck in traffic. It's worthless. It's shit for the environment, shit for you, shit for your mental health. Like, there's no reason why you should be stuck in traffic. Like, it's crazy.
I'd rather pay exorbitant Goa cab rates.
Yeah. At least you get a surf out of it.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's a great note to end it on. Thank
All
you,
right.
Mithil.
Cheers.
This
Thank
has
you.
been a fun one.
It has
Let's see
indeed.
what happens to our cities. Hope everyone enjoyed this video. As usual, please comment and subscribe to the channel. We're out. Cut.
Cheers.